Your old friend Marcus texts the group chat asking if anyone can chip in $20 for gas money before Friday's reunion dinner. You're the first to respond. Yeah, I've got you covered. Don't worry about it. You don't mention that 4 months ago, a wire transfer for $14.2 million landed in your business account on a Tuesday afternoon while you were making a sandwich, and you barely looked up from the cutting board. You are Nathaniel Cho. You're 41 years old. 11 months ago, you sold the software company you built from a spare bedroom, a scheduling platform for dental practices nobody outside the dental industry has ever heard of, to a private equity firm for $19.6 million. After taxes, after paying off the 2 co-founders who left early, after the earn-out structure that released the final chunk 11 months later, you personally cleared just under $14.2 million. Your high school friend group, the same 6 guys you've known since freshman year, still thinks you do something with computers and assumes, reasonably, based on your car and your apartment, that you're doing fine but not extraordinary. Here's the part almost nobody understands about a windfall like this. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like standing very still in a room that had suddenly gotten much larger, unsure which direction was actually forward. You started the company at 29 after getting laid off from a corporate software job you'd hated for 3 years. You had $22,000 in savings and a friend, a dental hygienist named Priya, who'd spent an entire dinner complaining about the scheduling software her office used, how clunky it was, how it double-booked patients constantly, how nobody had built something better because the dental software market was too small and boring for anyone serious to bother with. Too small and boring turned out to be exactly the point. You built the first version alone in 6 months, teaching yourself the parts you didn't already know. You signed your first paying client, Priya's own dental office, for $80 a month. It worked. Not dramatically, just steadily. By the end of year 1, you had 11 clients. By year 3, 340 clients and 2 employees you'd hired to handle support tickets you no longer had time for yourself. By year 6, 2,100 dental practices across the country paying a recurring monthly fee, and a company worth, according to the first acquisition offer you turned down, somewhere around $6 million. You turned that offer down at 35, and for 2 years afterward, you genuinely didn't know if that had been brave or stupid. The second offer, 3 years later, was more than triple the first.
The deal itself took 8 months to close, most of it invisible to everyone around you. Due diligence calls at 6 a.m. before your day job hours even started, since you were still technically running the company full-time during the entire process. A data room with 400 documents your lawyer, a sharp, unflappable woman named Odalus, organized and reorganized until the buyer's team stopped finding things to object to. A final negotiation over an earn-out clause that took 11 months to fully release, meaning even after the deal closed, you weren't entirely sure the last $2.8 million was actually coming until the day it did. Your parents know. They helped you cover a semester of community college tuition at 19 when things were tight, and telling them felt less like an announcement and more like a debt finally being acknowledged out loud. Your sister knows, mostly because she does your taxes, and the numbers were impossible to hide from a professional accountant who happens to be family. That's 3 people. Everyone else in your life is working from an outdated picture that's now off by roughly $14 million.
The friend group is the strangest part, because you didn't choose to hide it from them exactly. It just never came up in a way that made sense to correct. You still drive the same 6-year-old Honda. You never mentioned the deal in the group chat, the same way you'd never mentioned smaller financial details before, because that group chat has always run on complaints about rent and splitting bar tabs evenly, and there was no clean sentence that fit, "Also, I'm worth 8 figures now," into that rhythm without detonating it. 2 months ago, one of the 6, a guy named Ferris, who's struggled with money since a divorce 3 years back, mentioned offhand that he might have to skip the annual camping trip because he couldn't cover his share of the cabin rental, $340. You quietly Venmo'd the full cabin deposit to the friend organizing it and told him to just say a sponsor covered it this year, a phrase vague enough that nobody asked twice. Ferris came on the trip. He has no idea who actually paid. This is where the real cost of the money lives, not in taxes or in Odalis's closing fees, but in moments exactly like that one, standing around a campfire with 6 guys you've known since you were 14, listening to Ferris thank whoever the mystery sponsor was and saying nothing, because correcting the record would mean explaining everything else too, and once you start explaining, you can't really stop halfway through. You've started noticing a specific kind of loneliness that nobody warns you about. Not the loneliness of having no one, you have plenty of people, but the loneliness of being fully known by almost none of them anymore. Because the version of you they know stopped being complete 11 months ago, and you haven't found a way to update it without changing the entire shape of every relationship attached to it. The test came 6 weeks ago. And it wasn't dramatic, which somehow made it worse. Your friend Devin, the one who's always been most direct, asked you point blank over beers why you never talk about the sale anymore, since he remembered you mentioning some acquisition talks over a year ago and then just nothing. You gave him a version of the truth. It closed, it's fine, it's just not that interesting to talk about. Devin looked at you for a second longer than felt comfortable and said, "Okay," in a tone that made it clear he didn't fully believe you but wasn't going to push. You went home that night and actually sat with why you'd said that. It wasn't shame, exactly. It was closer to a kind of protective instinct you hadn't examined before, a fear that the moment the real number entered the room, every future interaction with these specific 6 people would carry a faint undertone neither of you asked for. Who's paying? Who's judging? Who's performing gratitude? Who's performing nonchalance? Who's quietly recalculating 20 years of friendship through a new lens neither of you actually wants? You started seeing a financial therapist, a niche specialty you didn't know existed until your accountant's sister mentioned it, a woman named Dr. Okonjo, who works specifically with people navigating sudden wealth. In your second session, she asked you a question that stuck with you since. What are you actually protecting by keeping this from them? The friendship or the version of yourself that existed before the money? You didn't have a clean answer. The honest answer, the one you've circled slowly over the past month, is probably both, tangled together in a way that's hard to fully separate.
3 weeks ago, you told one person, finally. Not the group. Just Devin, over the same beers in the same bar, because he'd asked once already and you owed him the actual answer this time. You told him the real number. He was quiet for a long moment, then said the thing you'd been bracing against for 11 months without realizing it. Cool. Are you going to still come camping next year, or does the mystery sponsor thing become a permanent bit now? It landed lighter than you expected. Not nothing. He asked a few real questions after, about the company, about what the process actually looked like, but not the seismic shift you'd built up in your head either. You haven't told the rest of the group yet. You're not sure you will. Not all at once, not with a formal announcement. Maybe it comes out the way most true things eventually do, in pieces, offhand, over years, the way Devin now knows, and nobody's life has visibly changed because of it. Next Friday, the group chat will probably ask again about splitting something small, gas money, a bar tab, a cabin deposit, and you'll probably say what you always say, "Yeah, I've got it, don't worry about it." Except now, at least with one person in that chat, it doesn't feel like a small lie anymore. It just feels like something true that happens to also be generous, which, it turns out, was mostly what it had been all along.